Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we announce an all-new local competitive multiplayer mode for this podcast. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great, Patrick. I have a question for you real fast.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
do a question. Let's do a Q&A before
right
we
up
get
top.
Right up top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so after we recorded our news episode, I was thinking on my drive home, I was like, I think I have a great topic for 433, but since Sonic is on Nintendo platforms now, does this not count? So basically, I think we should determine which Sonic character we are.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Which one we are?
Yeah, and we don't have to do it right now. We can let this marinate and then come back to it. But
Right.
I think it's something worth exploring.
Well, I mean, this could very well also be a future topic episode of who is the best Sonic character. Because I feel like, first of all, we'd have to have Minzui back, or Ryan, maybe.
Or we could have multiple guests and be a real battle royale.
That may be the way to go. That we put all the Sonic characters on the table, and then we just take turns eliminating them until they're all gone, and none of them are crowned best. Which I think is probably right. I feel like that counts as a Nintendo topic.
I think you're right.
Sega's been playing nice with Nintendo for so long. Do you have an immediate answer of who you are in...
Now I'm not going to tell.
Ooh, a lady never tells. Mark, speaking of Sonic the Hedgehog, hold on. We got to establish what's going to happen here. The whole show isn't going to be just nonsense about Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, right, yeah.
Thank
God.
Last time we talked to our audience, we said we're going to be doing one of two things next episode. Neither of those two things was talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. We are going to go through the Nindie Summer Showcase 2018.
That happened on Tuesday.
That happened on Tuesday morning, and we're going to talk about all the games that were shown off in there. Because it seems like enough content that we can talk about it all.
And if not, we can fill it with filler.
Right, like a conversation about Sonic the Hedgehog segue to a conversation about Sonic Forces on the Nintendo Switch. I have a copy of it. I am lending it to people. Would you like to be one of those people? I'm not lending it to my friends. I'm lending it to people who listen to this show.
Better than friends.
Better than friends. Here's the thing. I don't have to buy them a birthday cake. When's the last time you bought someone a birthday cake? Do you remember?
Offhand,
like you personally.
Oh,
not that like you kicked in for a birthday cake, but like you did it.
Oh boy, I mean, I don't know that I ever have.
Yeah, it's tough. I think I bought someone like dessert recently for their birthday. No, I'm making that up. Why did I even do that? That was a lie. If you would like to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces, just email me your address. Email that to Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And I send it to you. It's got return whatever. It comes back to me. Everyone loves it and plays Sonic Forces. Mark, what else can you do with that email address?
You should write in.
Yes.
And tell us your pick for the best Zelda NPC of all time.
Mark, what do we mean by NPC?
Non-playable character.
Right. And for the purposes of this conversation,
that's pretty much anybody that's not Link.
It's anybody that's not Link. We're not counting playable characters from like Hyrule Warriors, playable. I'm not even going to count Makar and Medley from Wind Waker. I get that you sort of control them a little bit throughout the course of that game.
But if you want to nominate them, we accept that.
We accept that. Anyone but Link, really. We said this last time. If you don't tell us who you think is going to be the best or who should be the best, Mark and I are just going to say tingle at each other like an acting exercise. So it is just you have to get at us.
I mean, it's imperative.
Yeah, yes, it is imperative. Thank you. That's the word I was reaching for and could not
The
grasp.
quality of that episode is at risk
Yes.
if you do not participate.
So send us an email, Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com, and do it hastily.
Right, because we are recording on September 10th. It is going to happen then. So if you don't get in before then, we're just gonna blow past your opinion, and I apologize for that, and I wish we could have included you, but to be fair, we're reaching out right now, and I just feel like you had your opportunity to be involved, and you're just blowing it. Mark, let's get into this direct. Now, I said direct, but did they call this thing a direct or a Nindie Summer Showcase?
That's exactly what they called it.
Very good. So this one was not hosted by Damon Baker, who had been hosting the last couple, but this one hosted by Kirk Scott, who was sort of like a featured player in it's like they're bringing them up through the ranks like Saturday Night Live does.
Yeah, and not that this is important at all, but is Kirk Scott Damon's boss? Like, what's the org structure of Nintendo of America? Is basically what I'm getting at.
We want to see.
Send me that org chart.
That's right. We want to see a flow chart to see who answers to who, and if I need to go around any of them, who do I talk to?
Right. Like, how do I escalate a concern?
So, Kirk in the previous video was sort of cast as like a weirdo, right? He's a little bit more grounded in this one. Or at least there's no one to like roll their eyes at him. So like we don't know if he's supposed to be weird or not.
Yeah, he seems normal. He's fine. He does a great job.
Seems totally normal. At least a little bit normaler than you and I here talking about this thing. The showcase started off with a shout out to the Nintendo Europe indie highlight video that kicked off Gamescom last week.
Yeah, I wonder how much like communication there is between Nintendo of Europe and Nintendo of America for this sort of thing. Or like Nintendo of Europe, do they have can they just do it themselves? And, do they have to give Nintendo of America a heads up? Like,
it's so
how these
weird.
like announcements, like if you're going to premiere something, how does it get determined like who's going to do the premiering?
Yeah, well, and like they're not even branded the same way. Like the one was called a like indie highlight whatever, and then this is a Nindie showcase. Like they're not even using the same language or branding for it.
Again, shoot us that org chart.
Yeah, we want to know, and it has to be a bigger org chart so that we've got both Nintendo Europe and Nintendo of America. Well, we want to know it all. So he said to consider this part 2 to that video. Part 1 was we saw last week. This is part 2. Mark, overall, what'd you think of this thing? Was it fun for you? Was it exciting?
I thought it was a really good presentation. I liked that it was 15 minutes long. It was snappy.
Mm-hmm.
Saw a bunch of stuff. It was a good balance of like getting concrete dates for things that we had seen previously and some new games that we hadn't heard about before.
Yep. Worth noting that none of the 4 games that I suggested on Tuesday that were going to be on
Nary
this thing,
a mention.
None of them. Meat Boy, no. Shovel Knight, no. The other ones I said, no. But the thing does start off with Hyper Light Drifter, which is a game that has been on a number of other platforms and is now making its way to Switch. And this is sort of the common refrain on all of these things, is that with new exclusive content on Switch. Mark, do you know Hyper Light Drifter? Have you played it on any other platforms?
No, I haven't played it. I know it only by reputation.
Yeah, it's actually me for a lot of these games, is that I know them by reputation. Hyper Light Drifter comes out on September 6th, and for some reason they were pushing that it's available for pre-purchase today. So if you're a big digital pre-purchase guy, get on it, I guess. Next up was Towerfall. Coming out on the 27th, September 27th. Mark, do you know Towerfall at all?
No, so here's the thing, is that
Yes.
most of these games,
Yes.
they're new to me.
Right.
So even if they had appeared on other platforms or like the PC, I haven't played them. I probably haven't heard of them. So, because I know a lot of people, I was seeing the reaction, and people love playing games on the Switch, so nobody's like upset about it, but it is like, these are all games that a lot of gamers have already purchased on other platforms.
Right.
For me, that is not my experience.
No, I mean there are a lot of games here that I have either seen on other, mostly just seen. I haven't played actually any of the games that are on this list, but it's an exciting list of games, or like it looks really cool. Like Towerfall, for example, showed off a 6-player like battle mode.
And having these sort of new for Switch local multiplayer or like co-op modes is very
competitive more often than co-op. There were maybe like 1 or 2 examples of co-op, but mostly it was competitive play.
And that's like the sort of thing that we're seeing a lot when indie games come from other platforms to Switch.
Yeah. And it's cool and makes sense and like speaks to, what the Switch does so well, which is, local multiplayer anywhere. So, Towerfall is an obvious example of like that, that put into action. The game, when it comes out on the 27th, will include the Dark World and Ascension expansions, and you can also play as Madeline from Celeste, or Badeline, who can only guess is some sort of bad Madeline.
So, I will say that watching these videos, like, some of the games looked fun, even though I did not entirely understand what was going on. Towerfall was one of those things where it's like, I mean, even Hyper Light Drifter, where you're just kind of like, oh, you're like this thing that's going around and like stabbing other things, and Towerfall was just like you're like jumping around.
You're like tiny little guys with bows and arrows, and it seems like maybe you're just fighting each other. I don't know. And maybe that's just showing off the 6-player battle mode.
Yeah.
But either way, both those games look cool and look like a fun time to. Hyperlight is more of like a single player experience, but this one looks like a cool thing to throw down at friends or with friends. Next up came Treasure Stack, which is coming out this winter. Treasure Stack is a falling block puzzle game a la Tetris, except you control a character at the bottom of the screen who is like rearranging the stuff as it falls. Mark, do you know what this is? This is Wario's Woods in a different facade, but it's Wario's Woods. That's the way that game works. You're Toad. You play Toad. It's at the bottom of this tree, which is filling up with these falling blocks, and you run around and climb, and you pick things up, and you put them down. This game is just Wario's Woods.
Now, you're loving Tetris.
Mm-hmm.
You're loving Dr. Mario.
You bet I am.
Are you loving Wario's Woods?
Mark, come on. I love Wario's Woods.
So Treasure Stack
seems like my jam. They go out of their way to point out that it is cross-platform, so that you will be able to play with people playing this game on other machines.
That's cool.
Yeah, which is cool, and I don't know. It seems like the wave of the future, right? And maybe it's only like an indie thing, or I mean, I guess Fortnite is cross-platform play.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing it more and more.
Yeah.
Where possible.
Yeah. And where not possible, we are not seeing that. Then the presentation moved on to Zarbot. This is another one where I was like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, nope.
Because they originally kind of pitch it as cubes making friends with each other. But then immediately goes into, and now here's the new mode on Switch, which is, of course, a cubes battling each other sort of mode. Again, local, multiplayer, competitive. This is one I just don't understand.
I've got nothing either.
Mineko's Night Market, which is an early 2019 game.
Cute.
It looks like almost, so they said that there's like 20 hours of story content. And so it looks like a story-driven anime Animal Crossing light, right? Because like you have to do things like you have to sew and do woodworking and talk to people and give them things and make them happy. But also there are a bunch of cats and one like mystical cat who's maybe real but is also maybe a legend.
And are the cats growing out of the ground?
Who knows what's
happening there?
I don't know. Maybe. Or the cats don't exist. It's hard to say.
Cabbage Patch Kitties.
That's very cute, Mark. But this one is exciting for me. It looks like fun, and super cute. this is another one that they were saying was coming first to Switch, or at least console first. I don't know if it's also out on PC. Next up, Samurai Gun 2, another early 2019. This is again, I'm just gonna say another pixel art platformer, action platformer, where you can play with multiple people at one time on the Switch.
Okay, so let's actually talk about that for a little bit. What is your feeling in general on like, I guess if we're going to lump indie games together, it seems like they have a very strong. Everything looks the same to me.
Everything is starting to look the same, and I mean, it's a bummer that that has sort of become like standard. What an indie game looks like is to have that sort of pixel art style, because I like that style, and it does say video game to me. But it's feeling less novel for sure. Like when a new Shovel Knight campaign comes out, am I going to be like, oh, yeah, excited just for that aesthetic again, or is it going to start to feel stale? I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
No, I mean I feel the same exact way. It's like, yeah, on a game by game basis, I can like appreciate the artistry.
Yeah,
but in general, it's like your game does not stand out.
yes, for sure, and especially like when there's just no novelty to it anymore. Like there was a little while where it's like, whoa, cool, throwback, whatever. But now it's just like, no, this is just an artistic choice that feels like a lot of other artistic choices. So, I don't want to be like a huge bummer about it, but like it bums me out a little bit.
Yeah, it's like a weird thing to be I guess like
to start to be down on it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
like,
exactly.
I was such a big proponent of it for so long, and I guess probably the whole like gaming community was, which is why we find ourselves in this position now, is that it's like, yeah, of course we like that. We like Mario. Give me something that looks like Mario.
Right, exactly. So this isn't like to bag on Samurai Gun 2 specifically. Just something that I noticed. Right. Like, yeah.
That being said, Samurai Gun 2, I do not care about. Mark? Oh, the thing that I did think was cool about Samurai Gun 2 is that it is coming with a comic by French artist Valentine Sey. I don't know how to say his last name, but it is like the story of the game. It just like in a comic, and it has like touch swipey controls to read the thing on Switch.
Yeah, that's cool. I imagine you can like turn the Switch vertically.
Ooh, and
read it like a
comic
reader. Yeah, exactly.
So that's neat. Next up came Bullet Age. Bullet Age does not have pixel art. It has like cartoony art. And is, instead of a competitive multiplayer game, is a cooperative multiplayer game.
All of these things checking my boxes.
And it is still, though, an action platformer with both gun and hand-to-hand combat. One thing they mentioned about the Switch-specific features is that it uses the HD rumble so that you can like feel how charged up an attack is, or like what level attack you're using, or whatever like that.
Right, or if you're like charged up with 3 ice cubes instead of 4.
Yeah, you always you can like rotate it around, and there's no audio cues, but you can feel it. I tried to play that how many balls are in the box game on 1-2 Switch when Sarah's parents were in town. I'm still no good at it. I still like, everyone's like, oh yeah, you can tell that there are 4, and I'm like, I don't. I cannot. Next, the World Next Door. Mark, any impressions or thoughts on the World Next Door?
Puzzle battle games I've never really been able to get into. Yeah,
so it's a story-based like conversation tree sort of game, but when you get into the actual like gaminess of the game, it is like a puzzle battle sort of thing, which reminds me a little bit of Catherine, because Catherine was so focused on like conversation trees and your sort of just narrative experience of this game, but then every night you have to do these like weird Q*bert-y style like puzzle climbing games, and there are parts of that game that just get like really hard, and you're like, I just want to continue with this infidelity simulator as blonde Catherine tries to seduce me away from the girlfriend that you're going to marry. It's a weird game, but yeah, switching over to like the puzzle part of it is not always the smoothest transition. I wonder if it's going to be different in the world next door. And again, because it's on Switch, you can do 1 versus 1 puzzle fighting with your friends in real life. Next up, there's a game called Levelhead, which seems to be based around just a level editor sort of feature.
Oh, yeah. There was something really off-putting about the presentation.
The trailer was awful. Like it's one where Kirk steps away and we don't hear any of like his voiceover about it, and it's just like the trailer that the studio produced or something, and it's got this weird attitude.
Yeah, it's like, oh boy, the 90s are back and we're radical.
Right, and we're like totally ironically detached from it enough that like you can't judge us, but like maybe it's funny, nobody knows.
If you like it, we're totally in on the joke, but if you
don't
hate it, we also
think
get that.
Lame. Yes, 100% that's what this was. And I don't know, any game with a level editor, I feel like great potential, but like, I don't know, curation is going to be a problem because it's always a problem. And also, like, if it's something I don't care about from the get-go, I don't really know how much I'm going to care about editing those levels.
Yeah, like, I guess that's the one hook that Mario Maker has.
Yes.
Because... yeah, I remember with the original Little Big Planet, like all that kind of stuff. I personally just don't take pleasure in crafting levels.
Right.
They're either like poorly made because I don't know how to do it, or it would take, or I feel like people either make ruthless levels, you know, or they're just poorly made levels.
Yeah,
there's very little in between.
Yeah, there's almost no premium on just like here's a fun level. Here's like an appropriately challenging level.
Yes. level.
Even if something is well constructed, like it's almost always going to end in a challenge that's almost insurmountable. And it's like, no, that's not. Just like introduce a concept, make me overcome that concept a couple times, and then get to the end.
I guess the one thing that I'm like, is obviously Mario Maker or a version of Mario Maker or some sort of game like that would be possible on Switch because these guys figured out how to do it, and they seem like knuckleheads.
They do seem like knuckleheads, Mark. You're right. Next up came King of the Hat, which is just another 4 people running around on screen trying to knock hats off of each other's head. This is another game that seemed a little bit too pleased with its own sense of humor, where it's like one of the characters is called Birthday, and his birthday is every day. And another one is a washing machine. And it's like, all right, calm down. Calm down. One of these guys needs to be a knight. Another one needs to be a wizard. Just cool your jets, buddy.
So one of the games that I think is treading that line very carefully, but for my money has not fallen onto the annoying side, is the Untitled Goose Game.
Totally on board. I think that Untitled Goose Game looks like a ton of fun, and it's got like sort of minimal presentation, and the art style is really interesting and cool. And you just play as a goose, ruining everyone's day.
But this is one of those games that, like, when it comes out, I'm looking forward to trying it out. But I think we should all agree to not ruin it by talking about it or turning it into a meme.
Oh, yes, agreed. So like, don't goat simulator this thing.
Exactly.
And don't chicken wiggle this thing.
Yeah, let us all just enjoy it in dignified silence.
Yes, and apologies to anyone who doesn't spend as much time on Nintendo Twitter as you and I do, because otherwise those references are just going to be just burn them. They're just no good. I apologize. And then there was one more game that we dug into, or that they dug into, but that was sort of after the sizzle reel. So you want to hit the sizzle reel real fast?
Yeah, boom. It was just like a bunch of dates for games I think we already knew about.
Oh, yes. So let's just hit all of them. I'm going to go through all of them.
Maybe there were some in there that hadn't been announced before. I can't remember.
So, okay, first up, we're going to go through all of them, and then we'll discuss what we have to discuss.
Okay.
Desert Child, December 2018. Wasteland 2, Director's Cut, September 13th. Bastion, also September 13th. The Messenger, August 30th, which we know, and by the time that this episode comes out, it will also be out. Undertale comes out on September 18th. Jackbox Party Pack 5 comes out in October. Transistor comes out in November 2018. Dragon Marked for Death comes out December 13th. Light Fingers comes out September 20th. And then Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP comes out October 2018. Mark, what in here speaks to you or has you interested in any way?
So Jackbox Party Pack 5, just in like the little bit that they were showing, I mean, we saw just like a few seconds of it, but I was like, oh, this looks like WarioWare.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of what the Jackbox games are. On other platforms, don't they use that sort of like phone integration where like everyone has their phones and you're just like answering and playing on your phone? I may be imagining this.
No, that's definitely true. I don't know what the distinction between like if there's like a distinction between Party Pack or like if they're all the same games. But yeah, that is definitely a real thing.
And that is obviously a fun thing to whip out at a party, and everyone can just like hop in and play. I'm interested in both Bastion and Transistor, both from Supergiant, the developer Supergiant. They make cool games, and these are two of those cool games. They just put out a game called Pyre that was on, I think, maybe just PlayStation, but it may have been PlayStation and Xbox. Which is sort of a story-based Quidditch style like sports game, which seems really neat and that I wanted to get into, but at the time was like, I don't know, I think we were doing this stuff, so I was mostly just involved in Nintendo. And seeing these two games on there gives me hope that we will see Pyre at some point. But I'm interested in playing Bastion and Transistor as well.
Oh, one clarification from my previous point was that's not like I wasn't bagging on Jackbox Party Pack 5 for being like WarioWare.
No, that's high praise.
I was like, oh, cool, this is a WarioWare-esque game.
That's a game you want to play.
So Sword and Sorcery, I think I have this on my phone or had it on my phone at some point.
Okay.
Did we know that this was coming? I couldn't remember if like this is one that had been like previously announced.
I don't know. That I don't think is a game that would have registered for me if we had heard about it earlier. And then Undertale, either we didn't know about this date.
I don't think we had an official confirmation of the date.
Right. It is now September 18th. So that is exciting.
And not that far away.
No, very soon. 4 days after the vehicle kit for Labo comes out.
And 5 days after our Zelda NPC episode.
That's right. So, a lot of exciting things happening in the near future. Okay, and then so when the sizzle reel wrapped up, Kirk talked about there's a indie channel now available on Switch, so if you want to be up on all the indie news, I wonder, do you think that portends them not doing this style of direct anymore?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just another good way for them to use the Switch's news channel to continually surface new information about indies. I think it's a great idea.
Are you going to subscribe to it?
Absolutely.
Will you remember to watch any of those videos in the news section?
I mean,
do you use the news section?
So I have a dumb thing where I hate there being like notification
that
icons.
Little dot. Yeah.
And so I will like check everything just so they will go away.
Just to make the dot go away, yeah.
And so yeah, I go in and then stories that I rarely watch the videos, but stories that I'm like, oh, that was pleasant, or I liked this, I will give like the little heart to at the bottom.
Right.
But I never use the broken heart, like I didn't like this, because I don't know of a context that I would not like, I may not care,
right,
but I don't like hate it. I'm
I
not
mean,
like,
certainly
I'm furious.
You're never heartbroken after reading one of these, right? That's a pretty extreme
yeah,
reaction.
Yeah. But maybe I should be using it because maybe they like tailor the news feed based on your choices.
I mean, maybe, but it can't be so sophisticated that like if there's something you really don't want to see, you should be brokenhearting it. But otherwise, I feel like just ignoring it is fine.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Anyways, I can't even remember why I got on that tangent, but
because I asked you specifically, do you use the news function on the Switch?
Oh, I do. Yeah,
it was a very straight line.
I do. Okay, great.
That.
Oh, what a relief.
And then the presentation ended with a one more thing, and the one more thing is Into the Breach.
So, as someone who was not familiar with Into the Breach, its positioning as a one more thing seemed a little odd to me.
Yeah. Same. I was not aware of this game until it showed up on this thing, although it seems like it's got some sort of cultural cachet that just you and I aren't aware of.
Oh, yeah, and that would not surprise me in the slightest.
Right. We are plugged into a very specific ecosystem of video games, and they're Nintendo games, which is why we do this show. And now these are all Nintendo games as well, including Into the Breach. It is available today. It's a tactics-style game on a very small map, and again has a sort of 8-bit / maybe more like 16-bit aesthetic. But the presentation of this game is really pretty neat, right? The story as it appears.
Well,
I
you
did
picked it
download.
up.
Yeah, I downloaded this because it was available right away. So I said, hey, why not? It's like bugs have destroyed the earth, and we keep traveling back in time to try and like fight them and kill them. It's basically Edge of Tomorrow, the video game, the tactical video game.
With like a cool kind of like 80s cyberpunk aesthetic with like the music and everything.
Yeah,
But like in a fun way that doesn't feel like super overdone.
Yeah, it feels well. We have only described it by referring to other existing things. It does feel at least like original and like kind of vibrant. And just in playing the first mission of it, or even like the simulation of the first mission, it seems like it's a pretty deep system where like you have to kill these bugs before they ruin the cities that are like your power grid. And there's with every single turn, it was like, okay, now here's one more thing you need to think about. So I'm excited to dig into this game and learn more about it. Mark, was there anything else that struck you or that you want to talk about from this direct?
No, I don't think so. I feel like every time we have one of these indie showcases, I am like, oh, we've exhausted all of the indies that are on like other platforms.
It turns out there are always more. There are always more that you and I just don't know about. I look forward to the next one.
Me too.
All right, let's get out of this. Of course, that's what we thought about the Nindie Summer Showcase 2018, but I'm sure that we are missing something. So if there's a game on here that we are not appropriately hyped about, or one that we are overhyped about, please let us know. Email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. And that's going to be it. That's it. That is it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. You should follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell. The show is at Nincart Society. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. My words are falling apart in my mouth as I speak. If you want to follow us on Facebook, the page is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you like Mark and Mine's opinions, we write about comic books on retconpunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, this is 8-Bit Patrick Ellers. Wait, co-host Mark Mitchell. Falling apart in my mouth. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Rachel, Oscar.
Yeah, Claire?
Do you love Disney movies?
Uh-huh.
Have you seen them all?
Not all of them.
What do you guys think if we watch them all in chronological order and then talk about them?
Ooh. Oh, and what if we can talk about it with some of our favorite friends?
I love that.
Yeah, what if we do it inside the Disney Vault?
You know, that's the name of our podcast, Inside the Disney Vault on Campfire Media.
Yeah, check us out on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to yours.
That's Inside the Disney Vault.
Let's go!
Woo!
Campfire.